City News is brought to you by East Brewster Lawyers Rotorua, celebrating 100 years of legal excellence and innovation.
Good evening, Rotorua. Tonight on City News, we review the weekend's major events in the city. Entries for this year's Creation Fest are opened, and the Taiwanese Council of Indigenous Peoples delegation has been in the city familiarising themselves with multiculture and business activities. It was a weekend of major events in the city, with thousands of visitors taking part in the Rotorua Bike Festival or enjoying the live lakeside show at the Village Green. Art in the Park also kept visitors entertained yesterday, with local creation and hands-on experiences available to the crowds. Also visiting on Saturday were pipe bands from around the region for the Central North Island Pipe Band Contest. And not to be outdone was the village of Mamaku, who hosted the Rotorua Tractor Club's Open Day. Images there from the Rotorua Tractor Club's Open Day held yesterday at Mamaku. People with creative flair are being encouraged to enter this year's Creation Fest. Formerly known as Wearable Creations, this year's Creation Fest has a new format and aims to encourage interest in art design and innovation. Event manager Joe Romaine says there will be entrant workshops leading up to the show that involves tips on models' stage makeup and on judging criteria. Entries are now open, with information available at creationfest.co.nz. The Taiwanese Council of Indigenous Peoples delegation has been in the city familiarising themselves with multiculture and business activities. The delegation was welcomed to the Rotorua District Council at a special ceremony last week before being shown a presentation on business-related activities involving multi-education initiatives, tourism and local government administration. The delegation's ultimate aim is to build an understanding of Te Ao Māori, the Māori world, among Taiwanese Indigenous people. The delegation's visit was arranged with help from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Trade. In sport tonight, the Chiefs get their first home game this weekend in round 3 of the Investec Super Rugby competition when they take on the Highlanders at Waikato Stadium. The Chiefs started their season on the right foot on Friday night, beating the Crusaders 18-10 in Christchurch. And good news for Hamilton fans, as free shuttles will again be operating when the Super Rugby champions play at the Waikato Stadium this season. The Regional Council works with contractors GoBus, as well as the Chiefs Rugby Club and Hamilton City Council, to provide the free shuttles to relieve congestion around the park and provide a safe way for revellers to travel to the game. The Chiefs are scheduled to play 6 games at Waikato Stadium during the competition. To your weather update now. Tonight will be fine with light winds and an overnight low of a cooler 8 degrees. For tomorrow, Tuesday, fine with light winds, a high of 24 and a low of 10. And the outlook for Wednesday, fine with light winds, a high of 25 and a low of 12. And the marine weather for Tuesday, variable 5 knots, but northeast 10 knots during the afternoon with waves less than half a metre, and it looks to be fine. Remember, for program listings or to upload your videos, check out our website tvrotorua.co.nz, or you can see updates on our TV Rotorua Facebook page. Coming up after the break, we catch up with RDC Emergency Management Coordinator Pauline Hitchcock to talk about the latest statistics released showing an increase in locals' emergency preparedness. And we have our special 2-part interview with Mayor Steve Chadwick.
Well, new stats have come out to show that half of Rotorua residents are prepared for a disaster, but the big question is, are you ready if a disaster strikes here in Rotorua? Now with me today is Pauline Hitchcock, Rotorua's Emergency Management Coordinator. Thanks for joining us today, Pauline. Now 54%, that is a good number to show that half of the city is prepared, but there's still 46% of the city that are not.
Exactly, yes, and that would be my message to everybody. If you relate that to the population numbers, that's still 30,000 people that are not prepared, and that's an awful lot of people.
So how does the RDC and the different bureaus around the country come up with these figures?
RDC have a national survey done on all the council services, and the civil defence part of that asks 2 simple questions. Do you have an emergency plan in place, and do you have a survival kit? And that's where our 54 and 57% respectively figures come from. But nationally it's Statistics New Zealand that do a survey.
Now the good thing about the 54% is it's actually higher than the national average, so that's a good thing, isn't it?
Way higher, yes. The national average is around 22%, so we're doing very well in Rotorua.
22%, so that means that like 78% of New Zealand are prepared.
Exactly, which is a scary thought to me. My view is that we know where we live, we know what the risks and the hazards are, so why wouldn't you put some preparations in place to take care of yourself and your family when something happens?
Do you think New Zealanders are a little bit apathetic and think, well, maybe this won't happen to us, but then you got to remember what happened in Christchurch, which was only a couple of years ago.
Exactly, that's coming up for 3 years now, this Saturday. But yes, I think so, because it's there all the time, in the background, but it's not happening all the time. People have learned to live with it and disregard it. Yeah, which is a shame.
Now here in Rotorua, like you said, 30,000 people aren't prepared for a disaster, so that means if something did happen, what's the opportunity of you going next door and your neighbour's not ready and you're not ready? What are you going to do?
That's right, that's my question. I can't understand why people would not want to take care of themselves. Why would you want to rely on somebody else if they're not prepared, they're not available, the roads are impassable so they can't get to you? So yeah, please go out there and get yourselves ready, look after yourselves and your family.
Well, let's talk about that. What do people need to do to be ready for a disaster?
There are 3 recommendations really. We want everybody to have a household emergency plan, so everybody in the family knows what to do when something happens, even if they're not at home, so you've got contingency built in. You need a survival kit. So that's for when you're on your own at home for 3 days or possibly longer. Your house is fine, but you haven't got power, you haven't got water, things like that. And then a getaway kit, and that's only when your property isn't safe to stay in and you really need to grab some things and go to a welfare centre.
Do you think it could be a cost thing where some people can't be bothered?
Oh, absolutely, it is. But we've got some resources that we're happy to share to show. One of them's got a 20-week shopping program so that you can actually prioritise what you buy in what order to make sense of it without having to go out and spend a whole lot of money all at once.
I think maybe another thing that people don't think of, because we're in the age of the internet and technology, is that we need a short bandwidth radio.
Exactly, yep. Most of the information you will get during any emergency will come out over the radio, and all of our local stations here in Rotorua have got an agreement with Civil Defence that they will give out media releases on our behalf.
Now, as I mentioned at the start of the story, you're the Emergency Management Coordinator. What does that involve?
That involves, in a peacetime, training staff, other council staff members with normal business as usual roles to do, to have a civil defence role during an emergency. So once something happens, it's my job to coordinate the response and to get all those people together and then work with the other agencies out in the field.
That's a big job, Pauline.
Oh, it is a big job, but it's an enjoyable job too.
Now, if someone's sitting at home, Pauline, and they want to get an emergency kit put together, where can they find more information?
They can go onto the RDC website, and there are links there to the national website, the getthrough.govt, or the McDem website, and also a link to the Bay of Plenty website. So plenty of information out there, or just give council a call and put through to me, and I'll send out some information to them.
Well, let's hope you get busy then. Thanks, Pauline.
Thank you.
Kia ora everybody, welcome back. Well, I am in a very famous office, which has changed a little bit since I was here last because it's got a lady's touch. Our newly elected and very liked Mayor, Steve Chadwick. Kia ora, Steve.
Kia ora, and it's lovely to have you here.
Thank you very much. Well, the first issue I'd like to talk about is the big white elephant in the town, and that is the discovery of the debt. Can we talk about that?
It wasn't really a discovery. We always knew there was debt. Right through the campaign we knew there was debt. It was really the opening of the books, I think you'd call it, in December. And we went up publicly before Christmas saying we've got a 3.5 million shortfall. So the debt was worse than we thought. But you've got to have a plan to manage your way out of that debt, and this new team are very keen to work together to find those solutions. It is a problem, but we're not technically insoluble. But if we kept borrowing, especially to cover operating costs, then the debt would have got out of control very quickly. So we've had 2 meetings now. One where we deferred, made some very hard decisions on some popular issues. The rural community take the first hit. We're not going to reseal a lot of those unsealed roads. But we've made the decisions based on some very balanced decisions. And I must say the council acted as a team and knew that we had to face this debt together before we can really invest in growth.
So, the growth of Rotorua now, the 30-year plan.
That's right. Well, we call it Vision 2030. So that's only 16 years from now. Council had 4 planning sessions, council laws. That's unusual for elected politicians. And they came up with a vision of what the place would look like and then said, how are we going to get there over the next 16 years? And certainly a leaner, more efficient and effective council is one of those priorities. That's one that we must deliver on this year. That is about gearing up to actually be able to deliver the priorities for growth for 2030. So council is going through a big organisational redesign at the moment. That's hard for a lot of council staff. There are 530 employees on council, so they're very nervous up until July this year. But we're getting on with that. Jeff Williams, our Chief Executive, has the full support of council, and we're going to own those decisions together, we as elected members and the executive. That's the only way out of this.
Kia ora. Well, it certainly seems like you have a plan. Was it a nasty shock?
No, we always expected to hear probably a bit more than what we thought. We need to remember we've got a new chief executive. We've got a new financial officer. So calling for heads to roll is rather silly. So we're in a new generation now, and we're building a new generation of trust in council offices, and by doing that it means a lot more work for myself and the Chief Executive. They're working very hard, I have to say. They're enjoying my energy, you might put it.
Yes.
But we're working together to find the solutions. So Jeff and I meet with the Deputy, Dave, every morning, and we go through the issues so that there are no surprises. We have no more surprises. So it's better to open it. As people have said, we've lanced that boil and now we need to heal, and quickly.
Lovely. So your most urgent priority with that, what is it?
Keeping the team together. We've started off so well with planning, coming up with a vision, and now every councillor has got a portfolio. This is very different, never been done before. So Dave Donaldson's looking at sport and recreation strategy, Glenys Sarank is looking at what a creative community would look like, Janet Wepper's looking at sustainability and rebuilding our housing stock and what we can do with geothermal. Mike McVicker and Rob Kent are looking at growth in partnership with businesses in town. Karen Hunt's leading the Heart of the City project. Meripeka Rokawa Tate is leading the new development of a partnership model with iwi. We're going to be a people-friendly city, and Councillor Rokawa Tate, Tania Tapsell, is looking after young people, and Mark Gould, older people. So everybody's got a job, and they're all out there doing their job, and we're reorganising the council so that they have support with their portfolios. Join those all up together and we'll deliver on that 2030 vision.
Well, that's certainly a very exciting vision, and we'll come back after the break and continue talking about all the positive things in Rotorua's future. Kia ora. Kia ora. Well, the vision of 2030, what is Rotorua going to look like? Well, our new Mayor, Steve Chadwick, has a very clear path of where we're going to go. Steve, thank you for staying with us. Now we want to hear all of the excitement that we can anticipate in the years to come.
The most exciting is what we can see about change in this town, along with getting a belief that things are happening and a bit of an excitement and vibrancy. So that's that partnership about tātou, we together. We're admitting as councillors we don't have all the answers. We don't pretend we have all the answers, but if we work with our community in partnership, so that's the voluntary sector, it's the business sector, it's the investment sector, we will find the solutions going forward. Where are we seeing it first? It would be the Heart of the City project. So we're saying forget about calling it the CBD. It will never be the business district again. The banks have moved down to retail south. The many closed shops. So what are we going to do with those closed shops? We're now partnering with some very interesting people have come out. Mike Steiner is leading the retail group, and now we've got Andy from Lone Star leading the Cuisine Rotorua group. And they're starting to help us set priorities for how we go forward. Now that's the partnership starting to happen. Before Christmas we did the big scrub, the big clean up in town, changed the gardens, not a lot of cost, replanted marigolds, bought some colour in, and got Joe Kemp and some community art in. Suddenly people started to believe something was happening. I will not take my foot off the pedal with that. So there's going to be more community art. There's work going on with what are we going to do when earthquake buildings need strengthening and will obviously not be there in the future. So we're mapping out a project around that. So the Heart of the City project is in partnership with our community. We've got an ideas bank, and we have the luxury of so many ideas for that group, and it's a committee working with council to sort through for priorities over the next 3 years. It will end up looking very different from the space it is now.
It's very exciting, and the growth for the economy. We have recently been talking with an expert from America about geothermal energy. What do you think that holds for us, and particularly your vision of Rotorua being the Spa of the Pacific?
Well, I always believed that if we use geothermal in its different applications, then we start matching economic growth targets for us, but also training up the jobs. So we're looking at geothermal for direct heat use, that's such as glass houses, it's aquaculture, it's also about heating some of our housing stock, but also some pilot sites for where we can heat homes or public facilities. Very exciting project, and Grow Rotorua are leading that, and that was Professor John Lund from our sister city and Klamath Falls. So it's giving energy to what has always been logical, but we didn't push on it. And that's where we see the growth in jobs, both from the spa, health and wellness, and that ties up our beautiful forest estate and beautiful places to play, our lakes, and the value of having clean lakes for us, but also connecting the suburbs into the heart of the city and out to those great recreation spaces. So that's work underway.
I have to say, I don't think I've met anybody who when faced with something like the debt that we're faced with, is able to just ride it out and just keep a positive focus, and you've kept that balance beautifully. So well done.
Well, it's the team, and the team is determined not to fragment, because when we fragment we waste energy, and that takes our eye off the end game, which is about growing our community and jobs, hope for our children, and a great belief in ourselves. We've got all the natural advantages here, we just need to make them work.
Yes, well, beautiful. And I will leave you by congratulating you on your new grandchild.
Oh!
Which is so exciting. So how many is that now?
That is the 7th.
The 7th.
And I delivered him.
And you delivered.
And we're waiting for the name. We've given our names and they seem to have been rejected.
Okay.
But I understand Falcon is coming somewhere in there, in Māori,
yes.
And he's a very handsome, beautiful child, and he inspires me to work for the children of New Zealand.
And with a name like that, he will surely soar.
Yes.
Thank you so much for your time, Steve. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you.
Kia ora.
Mayor Steve Chadwick talking there with Kitty Danielle, and we will have regular interviews with Mayor Chadwick right through this year, covering the big issues council is facing. If you have news that you'd like to share with us, give the station a call on 07 3488 984, or you can email news@tvrotorua.co.nz. And to watch the show again, don't forget to visit our website. Thanks for watching tonight from all the team at City News. For Māori Air.
Supporting local content so you can see more of New Zealand on air.
City News was brought to you by East Brewster Lawyers Rotorua, celebrating 100 years of legal excellence and innovation.